Okay, so he's a scientist who was like forced to become a scientist. He just wants to learn science. If he thinks that he's good at science, they're like, no, you should tell other people how to do science. It's a better one here. But they were just blacks.
That was good. You guys ready? Yep.
Shared space. Yeah. Shared.
There's literally one innovation.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is the March 23rd New Garden Township Board of Supervisors meeting. This is a meeting that's been rescheduled from last week due to the storm that was expected. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The board had an executive session prior to this meeting, starting at 5:30. Next, we'll go to the public comment section of the agenda. First, we'll start with a 3-minute time limit for any public comment on items that aren't related to the agenda. So we'll go through those first. If there are none, then we'll move on to the public comment on any agenda items.
And I was approached by a few residents that wanted to hold on to their comments because it was after the presentation on the zoning ordinance tonight.
Okay. Thanks. Apparently there's none. Is there any public comment on agenda items that anybody would like to make a comment on now?
I have a question about the ordinance, so maybe if you guys are going to talk about that, I just wanted to point out, again, sorry, Charlie Gerbron, representing Laurel Valley Farms. Looks like, at least for my eyes, there was a conflict between what's posted as the final ordinance and then what's in the materials, specifically with regard to normal agricultural operation. This document, which I believe was from the materials that were attached to the agenda, has that permitted as a permitted use in the EP district, and it's shown as a conditional use on the final ordinance. So I just wanted to point that out. Maybe you guys will discuss that later. We wanted to bring it to your attention.
Thanks, Charlie. There's no public hearing tonight, no recognitions. So next we'll move into a presentation from Family Promise of Southern Chester County. Chris, would you like to introduce it?
Yeah, so we have representatives from a local nonprofit housing agency here in Southern Chester County called Family Promise of Southern Chester County. We recently met, very similar to what we did in a short-term agreement with CAX for use of the Hiles property as a township rental, kind of identifying and see a need, fill a need with a viable property. Of course, that was just for short-term. We, through some network, found Family Promise of Southern Chester County, who's more of like a sustainable, ongoing type initiative. And as the township continues to explore a long-term plan for the use of the Hiles property and all of it versus just the house. It was just continuing to make sure that it's occupied and assuaging any sort of maintenance obligations as well. So with that, I have Carol Lowe here. Let me just 1 second to pull up your slides here, and I'll let you introduce yourself. And the mic green light should be on there so you can speak right into it.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carol Lowe. I have the honor of serving as Executive Director of Family Promise of Southern Chester County. Thank you for having us. This community has been my home for over 30 years, and it means a great deal to me to be doing this work right here in this community alongside people who deeply care about their neighbors and their families who call this place home. Tonight, we want to share a brief look at the challenges we're facing and the opportunities in front of us. I'm joined by two people that I'm grateful to work with. First, I'll have Bert Rothenberger speak with you to start off by giving us and grounding us in the beginning of where we started, where we have been as a community, and where housing challenges are for our families, and where he sees the biggest problem in Southern Chester County faced by families with school-age children. Then lastly, I will be supported by Lisa Patrone, who works in our operations. Okay, thank you. Our operations and our development work. She's going to walk you through what family looks like today. Family Promise looks like today. Our programs, our models, and how we're working to keep families and children housed safely together while they get on their footing again. So I'll start with Bert. Thank you. I was like, where did they go?
She's short. My name is Bert Rothenberger, and I've been associated with Family Promise since it's almost its very beginnings. I timed off the board about 3 years ago, and they said, we're going to make a position called Board Emeritus. And would you take that? I said, don't I have to die first? And they said, no. So here I am back again as a board member. But I'm going to put on a different hat tonight. I serve as the vice chair of the governance board of the Chester County Partnership to End Homelessness. The partnership is the program that operates under the Department of Community Development that works to remove folks from homelessness and to make future homelessness rare and brief. Each year, the partnership does a count in the county of those experiencing homelessness, those that are either in shelters or are unsheltered. Last year in 2025, the count was 313 folks. Fortunately, only 26 were unsheltered. But here are two numbers I'd like you to remember. 155, 50% were families. And those families had 98 children, 31% of those that were counted. And these numbers do not count all the families and individuals who are doubled up, who are couch surfing. And you'll hear from Lisa in a minute that the 4 school districts that Family Promise services are almost 800 kids said that they were homeless at least once during the school year. 800 kids. And that counts the number of individuals who were couch surfing as well. Now, the partnership has grown tremendously in its last 11 years. When I first joined it, we were serving maybe 12 to 15 families a year. We're now doing 10 times that number. And we have changed our model, and we'll hear a little bit about that, about our Promise Houses, and what we hope to have is your house in New Garden become one of our Promise Houses. We are the only group in Southern Chester County that provides shelters for families for up to 120 days and extensive case management along with that to put them into permanent housing. But more importantly, we're also the only group that is also dealing with those that are couch surfing, which is a huge number of families. We provide them with the same case management and the same support that we would to those families that are actually living in our shelters. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and let her tell you a little bit more about the specifics.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is. Touch the next button. Okay. These are some of our families. So, like Bert touched upon, according to futureready.org, these are the four school districts that we predominantly serve on our agency. So there were 295 homeless students in Kennett, 29 in Unionville, Chatsford, 128 Oxford area, and 225 in Avon Grove. So the Promise House model, we started as a rotational model. So churches in the area would house our families every single night. They would rotate every week. So one church would house them. They'd come to our resource center during the day, take showers, do laundry, receive case management, and then go back to the church at night and spend the night there. They would change week by week by week to another church. COVID happened and we had to pivot. So we came up with this model that we call the Promise House model. And so we have 6 homes that we rent in the Kennett Square area. Our families stay together, and they live in them for about up to 120 days while we give them case management services. It's a housing first approach. We keep the families together. It's very important that the kids have the same place to put their head down at night. And so it's not as disruptive as this shelter model where we were going from place to place to place. We offer 3 different programs. So we do wrap around the entire family. So we do have prevention services to try to keep families from entering shelter. We have an eviction prevention program to keep them in their homes. Then we have the Promise House model. And lastly, we have ongoing post-exit support. So we have a Promises Kept. So we provide case management for these families for up to a year after they leave our program to ensure their success. So safe housing plus financial coaching plus employment support, that's what equals stability. This is who we served in 2025. So we had 18 families in our Promise houses, and that was comprised of 66 individuals, 23 adults and 43 children. 2/3 of those families were single parent households. 41% of the children were ages 5 and below, just 5 and below, 41%. And we are so excited and pleased to say that 100% of our families exited the Promise House with stable housing arrangements. So nobody went back into their car, nobody went onto the street. They all were able to move on to stable housing. And I'm going to turn it over to Carol. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Bert. You guys, these faces are not clip art. These are real people. The family in the center was living in their car. And the mom is a program director in Westchester. She has a college degree, and one medical situation, one bill, one missed payment turned into a homeless situation. I'm happy to say that she now, we believe, thanks to support by Family Promise, she packed up her car one last time and she moved home. She stayed with us for longer than the 120 days because she had some eviction on her credit, and we had to find a landlord to work with her. And we found a landlord to work with her here in Southern Chester County. So we want to thank you. We want to thank you for being brave enough and bold enough to join with us, because these families, they are more than their plight. They're more than where they're living. And they have children they want to keep together. They're in our school district, and we're helping them to thrive, and we're helping them to ensure that every child has a place to call home. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was just the presentation, but if you have any questions or anything else about the prospect for use of the Hiles property, as well as just general. Good to go. So what we would do is within the next, I would say, few weeks, if you will, we have shared kind of a template of a similar agreement with CACs that we did last time. And then just via the rhythm of our monthly meetings with the one delay week for the April 27th, we would come back to the board with a draft for approval lease agreement with Family Promise.
Okay.
And then from there, it's just dependent upon finding people to come in and occupy the house.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Won't be a problem finding somebody to occupy the house.
No.
Thank you for what you do.
Yes.
Included in the meeting materials are the minutes from the last board meeting, which was March 2nd, 2026. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Then we've got the treasurer's report. Is there a motion to approve the unpaid invoices in the amount of $218,263.14 and the paid invoices in the amount of $153,505.10?
Yes, I'll make a motion to pay the bills, and the total for the two would be $371,768.24.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. No public safety report this month. And then we move into the monthly manager department report. Chris, anything you want to say there?
From the month of February, nothing significant to report. You have the agenda slides that have all of the inputs. And we literally just last month gave the full FY25 review. So if there's any questions from the board, anything from an operations perspective, please let me know. But I have another update for the air quality monitor as well. I was going to give kind of in lieu of the monthly manager report, if that is agreeable to the board. Okay. Good evening, members of the board, resident staff, Chris Himes, Township Manager. I'm here tonight mostly because it's going to get potentially installed, if weather permitting, by the end of this week. They give an air quality monitor. It's been some time since we talked about this in terms of a response to the ongoing air quality issue in the township. So in case people start asking questions, this is why it's going in. So I always find it beneficial considering I think the last public meeting real update has been quite some time in terms of just the emissions of hydrogen sulfide here in our township and the ongoing issue of how it's coming as an issue in the township with all the associated composting operations that are in this vicinity. So if you're not familiar, air quality has been kind of a framed issue in the township for several years now. There was a culmination back in the very, very early onset of 2020 that led to some legislative action, particularly through Representative Sappy's office. And all that did was essentially get some sort of study, because at that point, there hadn't really been a long-term condition H2S study within our township. So that went on for about 17 months or so. That was state funded through DEP. And then during that time frame, the township made the decision that in addition to the ongoing DEP study, there was going to be an opportunity to partner with Westchester University using very kind of like a similar measurement of emissions, albeit with different types of equipment. And that would basically just, you know, kind of some data points against each other so you could see, kind of get some cross-pollination with the two reports. So that always leads to some confusion because there's been two monitoring studies within the last 5 years, one of them funded by the state, one of them funded by the township. So we get a lot of questions about that as well. So just to kind of clarify that. So with that, the DEP study, they already had two monitoring stations in the area. They have them here kind of for a pretty significant period of time. One's up by the airport. There's another one over by, I think it's Avon Grove Charter School in a kind of in the vicinity of the composting facility there off of, I think it's State Road. So they used all three of those just to do was it an hourly interval capture of whatever that emission level was for about 18 months. And what they did is they took all of that data and they handed it to the Pennsylvania Department of Health. The Department of Health basically pulls in CDC and a couple of other federal agencies to basically commission this document called a Letter Health Consultation Report. And oh, by the way, everything I'm mentioning right now was all on our website. It's been on our website for about 2 years. So everything is publicly accessible as well as all these former presentations. But with that, the Department of Health provided a public presentation. It was here at the dais along with members of the Department of Ag and Department of Environmental Protection. And basically their overall summary of conclusions was number one, the level of measurable levels of hydrogen sulfide might have been a public health hazard for acute respiratory effects, particularly for those who have more sensitivity. So you're more likely to see that in children and elderly, especially if you have like asthma. So basically think of it like chronic acute exposure to hydrogen sulfide, which by the way is a federally registered toxic substance. So their recommendations are here. I won't read the whole thing, but essentially is if you're going to have this ongoing level of H2S just coming out of these facilities, you need to do something to engage in best practice to mitigate it from a control perspective. Essentially, you need to lower the emissions levels. So with that, this is just from the DEP side. The Township study, essentially, long story short, very similar through Westchester. They had 3 monitors. Now, instead of having one in West Grove, one by the airport, and one by, excuse me, I forgot to mention, the DEP town hall facility was here. It was like a temporary monitor. I don't know if you ever drove by town hall when it was up there. It was like a Connex box looking box right here by our Township building. Westchester, through the research of Dr. Lorenzo Chena out of Westchester University, I can't remember what type of backpack looking measurement device it is, but essentially it's a very modular type of device. And they put them more kind of within the immediate vicinity. So along Star Road and Pengreen Road, and then one up here in the Landenberg Hunt community. So with that, essentially, different type of measurement. So instead of just an hourly kind of quote unquote picture snapshot, they measured every time you had an exceedance level of 0.5 parts per million, I think it was. So essentially anything was up in exceedance. I can't remember if that was million or billion, but just want to make sure that it's like anytime it goes above that, it registered. And if it's below, it doesn't record a data point. So theirs kind of looks like a sine curve, if you will, over the time. And they went for a little bit less time because they were able to capture a lot of data, because obviously if you have an ongoing issue, you're just going to read more of it. So they did their study for about 12 months. They gave a public presentation, I think it was in the September timeframe in 2024. And essentially, other than the differences in the type of study and how it was performed, similar types of conclusion. There is a consistent issue with the presence of hydrogen sulfide in a very localized area here as well. So with that, the one thing that the township recognizes and our role is going to be continuing to provide clarity of the data, making sure that people have access to it, to do their own informational kind of capture of, hey, this is the data let's read. You'll notice that both of those studies were temporary in nature, and there was no long-term monitor located in this exact area, where if you look at all of the data readings, this was one of the hot spots as well. So what we requested is that DEP funds and places a long-term monitor in our park as close to the Landenberg Hunt property line on township property for the purposes of having another portal available monitoring station in the township. Because the level of readings up by the airport, because it's at a higher level, it's not in the exact downwind of everything. It's just, you're not getting a significant reading of it. So with that, we've also wanted to make sure it was outfitted to its fullest degree for kind of being in some one specific area. And this is also on our website as well, but they house a portal. You can go in there and it's essentially like you kind of click drop down menus, you select what you want to see from the air quality monitoring station, and you'll get like a daily read, a yearly read, or whatever that is there, but it is publicly available. So the one thing that came up from this was not exactly using the exact same spot. For those unfamiliar, Township building where we are right here was in our parking lot. It is kind of up on the hill and it's a little bit further away. So we wanted to get it as close as possible with a housing station that wouldn't we get a lot of wind in the valley kind of coming up here as well. So we wanted to make sure it was on very flat grade. We didn't want to have to do a lot of movement of earth to kind of get it as close as possible, because as you go behind the parking lot, it kind of goes down into that little copse of trees kind of divide in between the two property lines right here. So if you look out the window right now, I think we have an excavator kind of set up in that site. The plan is to start excavation tomorrow. So with that, we got this agreement in the summer of 25, and then Pennsylvania decided to not pass a budget for 4 months or so. So with that, we didn't have a funded monitor to be located. And then, of course, all things that can go wrong will go wrong. December, January, and February were like the worst from a weather perspective. It was either soaking rain or it was so cold that you couldn't dig. So we just had to wait for conditions to improve. And of course, all of that goes into a delay. So with that, we finally got a notice to proceed because this is DEP's project. They're funding it, they're constructing it, they're putting it in there, they're going to manpower it. But what we're doing to kind of offset some of the costs is just the labor, the excavation, some of the materials. And that's going down this week. Like I said, weather permitting. In fact, if I'm saying it out loud right now, we're going to get some kind of strange storm to saturate everything. But so what you will expect to see within the next few days is some digging in the park there. So in case you're wondering what that is, that's an air quality monitor going in. And the actual station should be delivered by the end of the week. That's what it looks like over there. Very similar to the one up by the airport. And the actual, because it's just essentially like a box, the outfitting of all the equipment will go in at a time to be determined, but the township will provide information on our social media or website when it's actually live and producing data. So with that, it's like, well, why would you want something like this? We got a lot of phone calls about a week ago. Actually, was it 2 weeks ago? This is the kind of scenario that we get from a public interest standpoint. So normally when something happens in the township and it's around kind of the conditions that creates kind of a unique circumstance in this one area, we get flooded with phone calls and there's not a lot of information we can provide other than it's just there, we're working through it. And this is, what has been kind of established in terms of information about this area in itself. So this was considered to be a smog event, and the reason I say smog is because fog tends to be obviously not very accurate and pungent and odorous. And this one was like a very highly accurate. You had to like a very kind of nitrogen-y, kind of ammonia, and sulfuric kind of smell in the air. And it was just as you're coming in. So you can see, because I started getting phone calls about this one personally before work, as you kind of meander up Route 41 and make a left on a star, this is kind of going into it. So it's kind of like going into a Stephen King novel. And that's just down there as you kind of go further down into the closer to the property line, because this was just from the parking lot up here. And then down Star Road, as you go even lower in the road, we had a lot of people that were having a lot of near misses in terms of auto collisions. Our police were getting phone calls. And it's one where normally if you get a fog advisory, it's through the National Weather Service because the conditions are prevalent throughout. As you can see, this is a very localized issue here specifically because you have this kind of confluence area of a significant amount of composting operations. And anything that happens here locally is just going to be kind of amplified because of the conditions and the actual industry present here. So with that, you would be able to go online and say within, I think, a couple different minutes, you have to wait for the intervals to roll with it. And you could go on and start seeing like how bad was it? Was it really as bad as you thought it was? And that's really it. It's getting clarity of data to understand from a public potential health hazard situation what's actually going on in the given area. So with that, not to continue to confuse the situation, but there are still ongoing air quality studies. So the ones we mentioned at the very beginning have all finalized. But with that, right around the spring of 2024, I don't know if anybody's watching the Forward Fly virtual town hall that took place from 6 to 7 o'clock today. He was on the call there. Secretary Redding, this was obviously almost 2 years ago, announced a $1.5 million Conservation Research Fund grant program. They do it almost every single year. But this was the first year that within the top 2 on the list were about measurement of emissions and measurement or quantification of the emissions coming from that. And of course, this was in the spring of 2024. If you rewind from that, March was the public presentation about the DEP report here. So it was in response to that it came online. And so they gave out significant grant funding to 2 entities that were heavily involved with the previous studies, one of which was American Mushroom Institute, and the other one was Westchester University. I believe they are still going on or wrapping up. I'm not quite sure. I know the Westchester one is still going through the monitoring events, but people ask us constantly, can we get access to that data? And I'll say, you're in the same boat as us because we ask all the time and we don't get the data and the reporting from that as well. There was maybe some updates about progress being made, but nothing in terms of specific amounts of what you're actually seeing in these studies, because with that, these monitors, I believe for each one, this one is actually on a point source farm here in the township, and this one's very adjacent to it. So these are the monitors that have been the closest to the point source of the monitoring of the study has ever been. So whenever that information gets revealed, you know, that'll become public information, mostly because these are funded with public taxpayer dollars. And that's it, just in terms of questions. I know there's probably continue to be the same ones of just, you know, what the solution is or anything else like that. All I can say is from the township's perspective, we're focusing on communication and having availability to data, because that's really what we are actually authorized to do. And yeah. If you have a question or, yeah, thank you.
I'm here about a different matter tonight, but I just would like to know about this. We've been monitoring for a long time, and the forward flies and the air quality. What can you do? Do you have anything at all that you can do to help enforce anything on the mushroom farms? Like we were told that the #1 complaint in this township is the eyesore that leaves filth on the roads in Limestone and Southwood. It's been going on for years and nothing gets done. So what tools do you have and what can you do to enforce anything with these mushroom farms?
So in terms of the issues, I'm saying these, the air quality, and you mentioned the forward flies, those
Yeah.
are all outside of the township's envelope, essentially, through ongoing discussions. A lot of them, public meetings here, very highly contentious meetings.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're at the mercy of ongoing kind of PDA efforts and partnerships that they're doing to just kind of mitigate. I think the Forward Fly virtual town hall kind of really, if you attended it, or I don't know when the link will be available to go back and watch it, that's what their approach is to that. They even said in reference hydrogen sulfide, they don't have anything to that extent that's been defined for forwards yet in place, but they are attempting to kind of move in a similar path, establishing similar parameters. But that's outside the township's responsibilities and authority, like because of acre and because of
Right.
right to farm.
There are certain things
Yeah.
you can do,
But
like
in
if
terms-
they're making the road filthy,
Yep.
if the structure is not sound, what kind of things have you been doing to address, particularly that property that is supposedly the #1 complaint in the township?
So
What
the
is
last,
being
Yeah.
done?
the last
Good.
meeting, the chief of police was here and we, confirmed the non-emergency number to continue calling. There would be warnings given and then I think from there fines. There's the, oh my gosh, what is the police commission? Oh my God. Public Safety Commission, so they would have more jurisdiction than the actual township.
Even zone, like, because the zoning officer, as far as like if things aren't conforming
Yeah.
to.
So
the
you can
code.
provide, and if you just want to call and pick up a phone and call township or the non-emergency line, either or, usually get funneled to, from our perspective, we would call the Chester County Conservation District and ultimately DEP if it's a violation of the Mushroom Farm Environmental Management Plan specifically. In terms of like, I'm behind this person and they're dropping mud everywhere and everything. That's a policing. I think it's still a civil penalty
Yeah.
potentially, but not criminal in nature, obviously. But those are the two mechanisms in terms of enforcement for agricultural properties, not just mushroom farms as well, just all agricultural.
So what I'm hearing is you need a lot of calls in order to,
Yes, and then
Okay.
it's one where people respond to public input. So anybody that see a need, feel a need, it's one where please give us a call. Please call the non-emergency line, put it on the radar, get a data.
the non-emergency police.
Correct.
line.
If
Okay.
it's for anything related to forage or essentially air quality, there's a DEP kind of hotline. They do log those. Some people feel like you're just kind of shouting into the void a little bit.
Yes.
Because you're not really getting like, it's not like, hey, we'll call you back in 5 minutes and talk about your issue. So it's not very responsive. But right now, those are ongoing things that you can do. but it's also at the same time, and I would just say, keep attention to public updates about some of these initiatives coming forward, very similar to today's town hall. Every conversation with our state legislators that I've had, at least on behalf of the township, has been that they're trying to make progress. It's kind of like steering the Titanic
Yeah.
a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the industry, no offense, Charlie, they send you here every week to make sure a definition of composting is accurate in the zoning. But they never show up for any issues regarding anything else or any type of accountability.
Yeah,
So,
I appreciate that.
no.
Thank you very much. Yeah. They could, if everyone was a good neighbor.
If you
we'd all
were a good
do well, You know
neighbor,
what I mean? Thank you.
if you're not,
Great, thanks for the comments. We don't have any unfinished business or new business.
There's one
Chris?
more comment. You wanted to- One more.
Oh, okay.
Dan Carlano from the Gardens on Daniel Drive. I just wanted, maybe you know this, but I did send a message to the DEP through their site to complain about the mushroom smell. And they basically got back to me and told me that they can't do anything and I really shouldn't be sending them messages. And basically that the mushroom farms are working within compliance of the regulations. So I don't know if you were aware of that. But she sent me over to another agency which never responded to anything, so it's kind of a useless.
yeah, I think when you write letters to just say like the mushroom smell, a lot of people get, worked up because they think you're just talking about like the smell of dirt or manure. That's not what we're talking about here. And
Yeah.
so I'm pretty sure everyone who's been impacted by it is well aware of like what the odor is that you're talking about. But I would just say when you send letters, maybe be more specific about like the air quality studies and the results associated with it.
Yeah, the way she worded it, she wanted no part of it.
I'm sure she
Yeah.
doesn't.
So, just to let you know.
Chris, you contacted the state too. You sent them those photographs. Can you just repeat what you did with the state?
So it's similar to everybody, just be specific. That was sage advice, reference kind of what's going, if it is a concern and it's part of your actual, so DEP is basically prohibited from enforcement for air quality because it's under the Pennsylvania Air Pollution Act. I can't remember if that's the exact name of it. There's an exemption for agriculture, specifically it lists composting. And so the Bureau of Air Quality, who responds to those, they get the information, but they are not able to do anything really kind of about it. So.
There is one quirk, Don Morgan, Hotfeld, there is one quirk that with the quality of air issue that maybe you could investigate. There is a gentleman by the name of Carl Diamond in the Department of Agriculture who was the odor control coordinator. And he has said that if it's a concentrated animal operation, meaning a hog farm, a cattle farm, chicken farm, that they can control the odor, but that he can do nothing about mushroom farms. So if you have a big pile of poo, move it to a mushroom farm because they can't do anything about it. If you drive out on 41, 5 miles north of Route 1, you'll see a concentrated cattle operation. I drive by there frequently and never smell a thing. Now, I drive through Landenberg here on Star Road frequently, and I never miss smelling something, and there are no live animals. So the question is, why? It appears to be a political issue. I certainly don't believe it's a health safety issue. The hydrogen sulfide levels that the professor found were profoundly higher than those the state found.
Thank you, Don. Next agenda item is the zoning ordinance review. Chris?
should probably just stay up here tonight, a lot of presentations. So good evening. This is the second kind of iteration of the Board of Supervisors public review of the proposed zoning ordinance, which at this point, it's almost approaching 2 years now into the process. But with that, never really having a chance for the board to kind of go through line by line after it had been completed in terms of final recommendations from the Planning Commission coming to the board. And with that, the expectation was iteration at this level before where we're at in the process in terms of the board's comfortability with the finalization of the ordinance, and then ultimately that going to the Chester County Planning Commission for review. Then we would schedule a future public hearing at the completion of that review in order to have that finalization of the ordinance. So we're kind of in that iteration until you get to that point where you feel comfortable with the final recommendation, knowing that the Planning Commission review and comments are advisory. You don't have to comply. And it's with that, I believe, even at that final public hearing, even though you've already got that final recommendation to have it reviewed, you can do small nominal changes even at that last public hearing before you adopt it at that meeting potentially. So just wanted to clarify that just in case people have questions about where we're at right now. So pulled this out of the past Michael Baker slide because it was helpful to kind of illustrate just everything leading up to this point into the fall meetings. So I would say that's been a fairly extensive public process, extensive amount of inputs along the way. And then with that, as you can see, iteration, version X, Y, and Z. And so it's just one where we're moving the train along as we're finalizing and tweaking the map, the uses, the language within different sections, the definitions. That's the goal for tonight's meeting. So with that, even after this process, the fall meetings, the Planning Commission had about 3 round robins of review. There was a little bit of a segue for the Zoning Task Force to meet after the November meeting. But ultimately, the December 17th meeting was in the Planning Commission finalized their recommendation to shift it to the Board of Supervisors. So we had this first meeting on March 2nd. And with that, there was some talking about some overview of the map. And then with that, because the conversation went pretty long, we also just agreed to work offline for the use changes and have them kind of brought to me to funnel into a finalization of the updated matrix. And if you have been able to access the agenda has had that update, tried to make it as clear as possible in terms of what's changing, in terms of the highlights in there. But that's essentially what we're here to talk about tonight. So we'll kind of walk through all the changes, leave it up initially for the board for discussion, then ultimately for public comment, and then we'll take on any edits or revisions that you may have. So the proposed map changes. So as of the kind of January finalized after that December meeting, this was the map provided by the Planning Commission. And then after the beginning of this month's meeting, this is the map as proposed with tweaks from the Board of Supervisors. So what went into that decision-making, a lot of it was consideration of just that extensive process. You don't want to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater a little bit and just say we're going to do our own map. So you can see it resembles the original map, but also want to make sure that there's consistency within the comprehensive plan. There's interpretations of that at every single level, but these were ones that were taken into account. And as well as the understanding that the comprehensive plan is one facet of it, but existing infrastructure, not to have kind of a too much of a stretch for density districts that are kind of further off the grid a little bit because of what that means in terms of interruption for your natural resources areas, your more kind of culturally characteristic of the township areas. And then this was ultimately what the outcome of that was. So with that, you'll see really here we're talking about is just kind of a unification of the northwest part of the township being really under the airport and or the innovation district. For those not familiar, pretty much all of this today is zoned as a business park. It's about almost 500 acres up in that area. And so that was one where there was an understanding that anything up around the Route 1 interchange kind of coming through, as well as Church Road as an offshoot of that, just wanting to have that be more of an access to the opportunity for that type of outcome. Moving to the northeast corner. So I don't know if you noticed it already, but in the central part of the township, pretty much all of that was residential flex, and there's been some lessening of that. So the way I think about it is we're just taking the residential flex in the middle of the township, and the board was proposing to kind of shift it up towards the northeast corner. And this is a predominantly built-out area, but it's just one where future opportunities as they may arise. Residential flex being a higher density, flexible type of district, but to put it up in the area up around Kennett Square and the more populated areas of Kennett Township, there's a lot of existing sewer, road, and stormwater infrastructure in this area. So it just made more sense to replace a lot of the residential medium, some of the low areas with residential flex in that particular regard. As you can see, the railroad line kind of served as a line of demarcation, kind of east of Chambers Road back into the flex, but this was one where you wanted to have a little bit more of a expansion of those mixed-use districts, kind of thinking that Baltimore Pike and the railroad line kind of serve as kind of a network of potential future opportunities as you head more towards Kennett Township. And then as you can see, the greater lessening was really pretty much all throughout the heart of the middle of the township. So for those not familiar, residential flex, I think goes up to about 12 per acre, residential mediums less than half of that, or excuse me, yeah, less than half of that. So this was one where on behalf of the board kind of decided that there was a general level of protection, kind of leaving it kind of as it is, very much in line with what is there today in terms of potential outcomes. But that's one where that was proposed to kind of keep it up towards the village of Tough Kenneman and up towards Baltimore Pike. There's some minor use district changes in terms of right along Route 41. It pretty much stays the same, other than just some slight muck changes here, and of course the Enterprise District there, just to keep for anything that's kind of directly touching Route 41. The goal was to make that into a mixed-use component there, and then similarly for the Enterprise District up there, as it's kind of fully encapsulated by the Enterprise District. And then really in the lower part of the township, it's really been since the jump, a low residential area. So all this does is take some of the permissible flex, which at the end of the day, you are talking about a fully built out area, and then just uniformly makes it all residential medium, kind of like it already is in some of the spaces. And then similarly down below in I believe it's the Broad Run Ridge community as well. So that's it in terms of the actual map changes. I don't know if you wanted to cut off there or get through all the district changes in terms of uses, and then we can go to a conversation, if that makes sense.
I think it'd probably be beneficial just to do the map first, and then we can get into the use.
Sure, absolutely.
And any public comment on the map changes, I guess first we should probably.
Okay.
Just the map, though. Then we'll go back to the uses.
Steve, was your comment on the map?
We had, I think, 4
Yep.
submissions.
We can start with
So
Steve.
would be for,
Yeah. Hi, I'm Steve Dooley. If you could go back to the airport ones, I was wondering what you're expanding the airport development zone or
Yep.
the airport zone across Church Road there
Mhm.
into those areas, as opposed to extending the innovation district down into those couple of parcels. And I was just curious what the rationale was for
and
that.
you're talking about these particularly, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that's a question.
I mean,
So, go ahead, Dave.
I say for me, it was that we had the hopes that there would be more airport aligned industries across the street. Right now, I think they're pretty much just mushroom. And
There is a CQ medical service.
Yeah, the medical services
Right.
thing is across the street.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, you're not going to probably be taxing airplanes across the road, so
Right.
kind of questioning because the airport zone is a little more restrictive in that area. It doesn't give new developers or people who have interest in those properties more flexibility in terms of what they want to do with those. So that's kind of where I was thinking.
Right.
And from my understanding too, is there is alignment within the industry type of uses between the innovation and the airport district. I think the difference is there's no residential in the airport district.
Right.
Okay,
I think that was the point I was going to make.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We also have Peter D'Anico.
Yes, good afternoon. I saw in part of the ordinance or the zoning change was a part on beekeeping. And I don't understand at all anything about why that's in there and what's it's doing, saying permission or use of beekeeping is non-commercial. I can't think of a beekeeping use that isn't non-commercial, other than maybe 2 hives for a person. I have the honey stand down on 310 Newark Road, and when I read that ordinance, that all goes away. I mean, there's no grandfathering provision. You can't sell honey from your property according to that, unless you're an agricultural enterprise or an agricultural operation. I'm just the guy with 10 beehives that has excess honey, and I kind of sell it on the side.
Yeah.
part, right? It's all permitted. It's
I think that
If you want to wait till after the uses
we could-
discussion.
if
Yeah,
we
if
could
we
just
want,
table
I could
this-
wait.
if we can just table your question for this, and we'll get to the map, because I think there is an answer to your question somewhat. For me, it comes under agriculture. You're protected. We can't tell you to stop it, I believe.
Yeah, it's sort of an agricultural use, so
Correct.
I can wait.
Yes, that's fine, because I think there will be more of those.
Thank
But
you.
we just on the map.
Okay. And then we have the Van Cooks. Did you have comments on the map or on the uses?
Map.
Okay. If you don't mind, can you just repeat your name and address?
Sure. My name is Alex Van Cook, and we have the property at 1259 Newark Road. It's on the east side of the airport, right at Airport Road and Newark Road, that 9-acre property. The reason I'm here this evening is I think we may have been placed in the wrong district, zoning district. And we have 9 acres there. And historically, the property was owned by Alex DuPont, and we purchased the property from him. He's also, of course, the one who had the airport. And he owned a bunch of property behind it as well. So that whole area was then zoned airport, I think partially because of his ownership, whatever. But after we purchased the property, we started to, well, let me get back to that. We have 2 homes there. One of them is from 1740, which is an old stone residence. We have a glasswork studio there, a glass gallery, and a retail shop. We have a barn, which is an old 3-story bank barn, and with 17 horse stalls. We have a garage and storage building. We have bee colonies, and we also have a honey honor stand right on Newark Road, if you're familiar with it. The property also hosts annual Glass Pumpkin Festival, which is attended by several thousand people. Usually it's like the second week of September. And given the size of the property and the pre-existence of the 3-story bank barn and the fields and so on, and keeping of the honeybees and livestock like the horses, all those things should be permissible, which they're not permissible under the airport zoning, but would be permissible mostly under the innovation district. The innovation district is defined as to foster a dynamic and adaptable environment that accommodates a diverse range of uses, including residential, commercial, industrial, and recreational activities, which we feel is much more appropriate to what we are doing on that property, and it consists with the surrounding area. All the other properties around us are innovation district, with the exception of the airport, itself and us. For the airport district, it is to facilitate the functions of New Garden Airport and support the businesses and services that it offers. So that is the definition for that particular district. And we don't feel that we really belong into it. if we would stay in there, I think we would need a number of changes in that particular zoning district for the airport, which would have to include residential, single-family units, which we of course have 2 on there. We have normal ag operations, including neighborhood retail and retail accessory, as is defined separately in the code. Include entertainment assembly, include event venue, and livestock, actually, that's also, which we talked about already. So we realized that we still would fall under the under the FAA height restrictions, which, the airport needs in order to function. But we think we would be much more appropriate to be part of the innovation district. And we are really sorry. We should have been here 2 years ago. We were not aware of this. I read your minutes for some reason of the last minute of the last meeting, and that's when I mentioned to my wife, look, those things are coming up. Why didn't we pay attention? And that's why we are so late in the game here, and we want to apologize for that. Okay. Thank you.
So I think the thinking there with the map has always been the divider would be Newark Road, Star Road, whatever, Penn Green Road. And to cut the parcel out, it would be contiguous, but the road would be a divider. And with the airport approach there, I mean, would we be making it non-conforming? But it's no more non-conforming than it currently is.
It's yeah. So anytime we change a use by the adoption of a new or modified ordinance, it can create nonconformity. That doesn't mean anybody has to stop what they do.
Right.
It just means no new use like that can come into that district. And typically districts do have very definite boundaries. As Steve says, a road is a typical boundary. So, and unfortunately, zoning ordinances and maps usually aren't tailored to any particular property. They're for the good of the whole township. So you don't have to stop what you're doing. It's just that someone new coming into a different property in the zone could not start those activities that are not permitted in the zone. It doesn't have any impact on you.
Right. And if you wanted to expand your use there, you would certainly be entitled to a minimum of 35% to
Yeah.
do that. You could ask for relief from the zoning if you had an accessory use that you would like to. That would go through its whole process and likely would go through the same process in the enterprise unless it was a use that was listed in, I said enterprise, innovation.
Innovation, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So,
So what you're stating is it's the type of grandfathering
it is.
of, what happens if we, tomorrow, which we're not, is going to sell the property to somebody else?
It would be.
It runs with the land.
So it runs with the land, it does not run with the
Not-
owner,
not
it
you,
stays with the
no.
land, would be no change.
Yeah.
So in other words, we would be fine with the operation at present
Yes.
and the future for the land.
As well as the multiple uses, because you have residential, you have business,
Business, yeah.
and just by us changing the zoning, we can't kick you out of your house or your business.
Okay.
Unless you stop whatever non-conforming
Right.
use is. What's the
Unless
time
you
period?
abandon the use, it says in the ordinance 1 year.
But I will tell you that all ordinances say it's 1 year, but what the courts say is there has to be some affirmative action to stop a use. So
Tear the building down.
and you also, there's a special exception provision, which is a permitted use that requires a little looking at under the zoning hearing board to expand by 35% without, you don't need a variance or anything. You just need to show you why you need the expansion. So there are a lot of protections, even though the zoning has changed it.
Okay. it's probably not something I should bring up at this point, but in one of your zoning requirements, it also stated that since we are in the airport zone, we would have to apply for a permit every time we plant a tree, or that we make any changes to our trees. We lost 30 trees in a storm last year. So do we really have to come up here and ask for a permit to plant a
It's to
tree?
do with airport or airplanes flying. So that's a height issue.
No, but I'm just saying planting a little tree, not saying have a tree 70 feet tall,
Yeah.
which I fully understand.
It's just a protection. That's because of the flight path issues. So
Okay, but you're saying we can certainly plant new trees, are you saying this, or we cannot?
I think you need to have a review before you plant them. It's not going to stop you from planting them. It may make you cut off the tops at some point, I guess.
I think
When
he's
they get
concerned
too
about
tall.
the zoning though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's more concerned about the zoning as opposed to the
Oh,
flight path. So he's saying because he's in that specific zone, is that correct? You're concerned that because you're in that specific zone,
Yes,
that it's making you go into these additional reviews that you wouldn't, irregardless of
right,
if you're in the flight path or not.
right.
right, right.
That's just a recognition that it is an airport zone. So I think everything has to be looked at a little more carefully. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't plant the trees.
Okay.
It just requires a review because there is an airport there.
Just to clarify, there is an airport flight hazard overlay
Yeah.
Right.
component to it with the airport.
Right.
You have to kind of scan both because obviously everything that kind of concentrical circles kind of goes out from the epicenter of the airport. They're all
Right.
subject to FAA circular advisory permissions. So I can't build like a cell tower without the federal government kind of giving the kind of, yes, you can do that. That's because of our status of a federal status of a feeder airport. And that's why,
Mhm.
you just have to be kind of, if you're in this area and you're going to plant something that grows really tall, yeah, it's going to have to be subject to a review.
So even if
Okay,
we
so
change
just in
zoning
that
to the
case.
IO, yeah, even if we change it to innovation, you might still have to go under like the
Correct.
reviews.
Right, I understand that. I just want to make sure we have, for example, we have an orchard there of 50 trees. Do we can't replace our pear trees and so on as we go through it, or we can't add trees?
I'm not saying you can't. We're just asking you to let us know so that we know what's happening with your trees to make.
So
it
we
work
would
for
have to
you.
contact
The zoning
here, but
officer.
we don't have to pay a fee of $150 for a permit to plant a new tree.
That would seem to be unreasonable, sir. We'll look at that to make sure that.
Okay, because that's what it is, right? So it states sort of right now, and maybe I'm not reading it right. But
I didn't read it that way, but certainly I'll look at it again.
if you would, okay.
I would hope not.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That's always something we can delete, correct?
I am not aware of any tree planting fees in our fee schedule, so I'd have to go back and review that. Are we good to? So just because there's a whole matrix to kind of run through, I'll just show kind of where the uses are kind of changing. And then with that, just open it up for public comment. So I will make sure to go back with a fine tooth comb that the uses that are highlighted here are the exact uses as of the March 10th iteration of the draft, because we did have people showing prior versions. And that's the issue when you're doing this kind of iterative version updates. Someone might access an older one and then it's just has incorrect elements that just have been updated already. But just like I said, we're kind of capturing inconsistencies and rolling it forward to update the future versions of it. So with that, when you talk about uses, you're talking about 11 districts and 122 total uses. So if you think of like a large grid, there's possibility of like 1,300 some odd outcomes of just blank or has a letter in it in terms of permissibility, conditional, or special exemption. And that's not even saying all the iterations that you could have of all three of those as well. So there's a lot of variability here. So with that, everything that went through the board's consideration ended up being about an update of about 47 uses. Roughly almost over half of them were for parks and airport type properties. Those are more public facility type updates. But with that, you'll see here at a high level, most of them were about permissibility of these types of uses on public lands. And that's just because some of the flexibilities that are created by having, temporary purposes on parks properties in case see a need, fill a need, and or the airport as well. And that's why you'll see a lot of accessory uses and temporary kind of residential lodging type uses as well. And we'll go through those. If I can get it going. So here in the residential and lodging uses, you'll see that at least in terms of the areas where maybe a community residence, a group home type function in the low and medium districts was removed. That's because that's, a fairly significantly sized type facility. And, these are example of maybe some special exemptions of those types of uses in parks and open space. But really the big one here was removal of permissibility by right in the innovation district for most of the, if not all the all of the residential uses, and that's basically having some level of board review that creates conditions in the innovation district for residential purposes, because the broader intent for that area has been making sure that there is a heavy emphasis on kind of employment centers. And if, kind of in execution in practicum, if I'm a developer, I'm coming forward, I'm probably going to want to really, really build residential and not build a whole lot of this over here. This creates some level of throughput of getting the employment centers built with conditions around residential, so you don't get extremely high density in that area, or if you want to have it be built in a certain way. So that's why the board put that there. Only one here for the agriculture and recreational uses, and this goes as an update in terms of the differentiation between normal agricultural operations, which has a whole list of definitions that apply to it within the actual definition inventory if you have. But the exemption being commercial compost, which falls outside of agriculture. So the board within the enterprise district listed this as conditional. So it's still a legal lawful use and it's permissible, just with conditions on that as a non-agricultural function. In terms of proposed zoning, this was just in terms of if we have events or sales for certain type of retail uses on parks properties. New Garden Hills, we want to do like, kind of events or have some adaptive reuse of some of the structures there for maybe a brewery, whether this would allow for that. Same thing on the brew pub as well. And I guess I can go through all of these, but essentially you can think about it as a creating for more possibility for outcomes on public properties as well as the enterprise district there. So I'm just going to walk through the rest of these, but I think everybody has the to see them, but I think everybody gets the intent of the changes to date. One of the larger ones too, and of course, if you haven't been paying attention to the news, data centers are all the rage in Pennsylvania these days. So this one was to remove those possibilities from the innovation in the airport and consolidate it mostly within the enterprise with conditions as well. And that's one where obviously if you are aware of it, they're extremely impactful uses within a community. They use a lot of energy, a lot of resources in terms of infrastructure as well. And so if you're going to put it in an area, you want to put it in a place that's going to cause the least amount of input, knowing ultimately, if you're not familiar with zoning, if it's a legal lawful use, you have to permit it to be available as a use somewhere within your ordinance and your map, and that's per the PAMPC. So that's what the board landed on with that one. And then in the muck light, which if for those paying attention, I think it was the limestone light. It was like 3 L's and an I. So instead of mixed use and limestone light, we just went with mixed use light, because if you remember some of the conversations about that area, that district, small scale mixed use, they think that naming convention of it is it's a mixed use district, but lighter uses. So that's why they came up with that name. So we'll have mixed use corridor and mixed use corridor light. So I don't know if there's any beverage fans out there, but there you go. And then finally, the accessory uses, and I don't know if this answers any of the questions in terms, but that's for parks properties. But I think within the most of all of the keeping ofs, within a lot of the residential districts, there's a lot of permissibilities. And that's one where I think in the comprehensive plan, it also discusses having that flexibility for, we'll call them the practice of agricultural type functions in residential areas as an accessory use of your property. If I want to keep these for personal reasons, or if I have a kind of a small retail side stand, it's that promotion of those as agricultural functions within our town.
When we say, I don't have my
And just the cab.
commercial, like that, does that mean, can we define it?
So there are definitions of these, and so they come with parameters. So it's one, it's dependent upon lot size. It's how many you can keep per lot size up to a certain point within a certain district, if that makes sense. So it kind of scales up as you get into a more commercial kind of district.
Okay.
But as you scale back towards residential low, if I have 1 acre, I can probably have like a few chickens. But if I move to a 2 acre lot, I can have more. It's kind of that like amplification up. right now, I think it's anything less than 10 acres. That's kind of the line of, that's the threshold right now in terms of, I think it's any domesticated and or poultry type uses. You have to have a lot of land in order to have it as a permissible use today. I think that's actually gone down to about 1 acre. And that's it. So I don't know if you want to, assuming we're opening up for questions here.
Yeah, if we can get Mr. D'Amico's questions answered first on the honeybees, I think.
That's where he was asking about the
Yeah.
commercial. Please.
No.
You're ready for,
He's ready.
to be the super.
What defines an agricultural operation?
I think beekeeping is a normal agricultural operation is defined in the ordinance and in acre, and beekeeping, as I understand it, is so long as you have sufficient area and so forth.
Yeah,
Is
'cause
it
that's what I was worried about. When I read agricultural operation, because I have, all the registrations, I have the limited honey license for selling off-site, but I prefer to sell on-site. And I wasn't sure if, because of what an agricultural operation entailed was my big question.
It pretty much is in compliance with acre. So a normal agricultural operation is,
So I'm safe.
yeah, you're good.
You're good.
Say,
Thank you.
yes.
Do you want the copy just in case?
So I read the section that he's concerned about very quickly. And to me, I'm reading it the way he's reading it, of it's very restrictive. And I also note that number 6 says agricultural commercial enterprise. No sales of honey shall occur on the lot containing the honeybee colony, which would be your home.
It would be.
So could we strike that then? Just number 6? And honestly,
It's in the draft.
page 187.
Yeah.
Yeah, number 7 is that you're registered, yeah. And I would be fine with striking even the
I
just
think
striking commercial at all. I'm just,
we,
Is grown.
Produced on your lot, so
Yes.
at least
no, thank you. I think
It-
that we thought the language, I don't think we thought, we were looking at it separately, right? So I think, we,
Thank you.
and I mean, these,
that,
they seem reasonable until someone brings it up. And
yeah.
so that's why we, really want your input for anyone.
Now,
So-
how would that affect our neighbors at the airport there? Because they're in a different district.
I'm Deborah Von Cook. We have Fire Hill Apiary right in front of the airport. I don't know if any of you have visited our honor stand, but it's awesome honey. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm too, because when I read it, it was like, it's very restrictive for both the number of hives. We have 9 acres. I don't necessarily want to be restricted to 10 hives maximum, which is the way it reads, and then also the honey stand. So if somehow that can be fixed so that we can try to recoup some of the money we spend on this hobby, which is not cheap, just ask my husband.
Yeah.
There you are.
Well,
Your grandfather.
Grandfather for everything.
so farm
Whatever you
stand,
got there is
farm stand is permitted in every district. As a permitted use for a farm stand
Okay.
throughout the entire township. If I'm reading this chart right, my eyes go crooked sometimes, but
Well, maybe we can get rid
Right.
of that section because it's.
Yeah,
not-
so this is
keeping of honeybees.
use, and her concern is now she's looking at number 2, which is on page 186, maximum number of colonies, any lot containing a residential use, yada, yada, and an absolute maximum of 10 colonies.
I'm not
So-
sure. Like, we're airport, how many, is there a restriction on the number of colonies we can have?
10, yeah, because so this is and if I'm correct, the things that we're talking about now affects every zone
Correct.
that
Okay.
it's permitted or conditional use or whatever. And so this is a universal.
Not very,
right?
Right.
So we're BU in local, you know, residential or BU in commercial, whatever you're in.
But there are people who now have chickens on a 1 acre lot and try to raise bees on a small lot. And I think that that was probably the intent with some of these sections, so that you're not living next to a beehive if you're on a 1 acre lot. But you're grandfathered for whatever you've got now.
Okay.
Does-
So
Chris,
Um,
does that number go up like for a 9 acre lot?
yeah.
The intensity of what you're allowed to have?
No.
I've read this thing a bunch of times, but I cannot repeat that verbatim.
No, it's
I'd have to go
fine.
back.
It's,
and-
it's,
Well, I think the thing that was disturbing is a lot of this is, so there's a model ordinance that the Pennsylvania Beekeepers, Penn State, and the Pennsylvania Apiary Committee, I don't know the right name, they created a model ordinance to help municipalities who want to regulate beekeeping.
Mhm.
But this picks and chooses like this stuff with the maximums and this agricultural language that Pete mentioned. None of that's in this model ordinance. So it was sort of, there's not a lot of congruency.
What does the model ordinance suggest for? Does it have like a certain continue on? Because ours tops out obviously at 10. And then, so essentially nothing more than 10,000 square feet because you're getting 1,000. You're getting one colony for every 1,000 square feet up to 10,000.
I'm not
Square
finding it
feet.
187.
Yeah, this is page 186. So
86.
yeah, number 2, maximum number of colonies.
Yeah, and I can see if you're in
Under
a
L?
neighborhood, that could, you know,
Yeah.
you don't want a gazillion bees, but you know, bees fly a 2 to 3 mile radius, so it's not like there's a density necessary. And on a 9 acre property, I mean, we have a lot of room, and we have the whole airport that we, you know, where they go. So I don't know, I would just ask for some better language, flexibility. I mean, you said we're grandfathered, but it's just nice not to have.
If
that
it would help for
ambiguity.
consideration, if you could provide, so my participation in the process has really just been observer, make sure the trains are running on time. So even on the conversations and these ones, I don't remember any conversation alluding to a national industry standard for model beekeeping practices.
It's just for Pennsylvania, which is very, very Pennsylvania bee specific.
So what we could do is get access to whatever it is you're referencing. We would lean it up against Michael Baker. They could look at everything. Michael Baker is our planning consultant. And that's who, they were the winning bidder on the RFP that we submitted back in like December of 23 or January 24, excuse me.
Because there were complaints or people were mad.
No,
Right.
it's just driven off of kind of Pennsylvania-wide best practices of just, this is usually what the modernization of
Yeah.
these types of uses are.
They are.
Focusing and knowing on what the solicitor alluded to is, you know, while you do have good practitioners, you also have those who are very amateur in nature. And if you give them a sizable amount of permissibility without the know-how, you can run into some rough situations at that. So it's kind of like a, you know,
Yeah. balance.
you can see both sides.
Okay,
Actually-
that's- just appreciate your consideration.
If you can send, if you have the model ordinance and you can send it to Chris, that would be good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any comments from our agricultural committee chair? Yes, sir.
That was refreshing to hear from you, to tell the truth. Along those lines, I don't know whether people really know the benefits of bees, what they do for us. The thing is, from the side I look at, there was a disease in them that killed a lot of them. And there are pollinators. And when you get working with a conservation district, they want you to plant buffers, pollinator buffers.
Yes.
Monarch butterflies, I don't care what you're talking about. And we don't think about those things of how much our food supply depends on pollination, because I'm sure blackberries there on Star and Ellicott, they need bees in there, and they probably have hives put. Now, the gentleman right here, I met him down at the Landenberg Church, Christmas time, summer's in there. And I told him he could put hives on my place. Steve was there, I think he was done too. So I don't know how that works either, you understand? You have Another thing with agriculture, or what you can do, if you do 10 acres seems like for assessment, 319. But if you do $2,000 or 10, I might be up to 10 now, you're fine. So, you know, there's a lot in here. I don't think people understand, I know. I understand agriculture, believe me, I do. Just believe me, I do. Really the benefits, it's like
agree.
saying those bees, nobody knows about, but my gosh, our fruits and everything, if we don't have that pollination, we're starving to death. So I'm glad that I hear from another agricultural segment. It's refreshing. Thank you. And again, I'm willing to put bees on my property because we have an acre garden. Steve, you're interested, so.
Yes.
I mean, that's not stopping the gentleman from doing anything.
No.
You might have 9 acres with 10 hives, but if you bring 3 to me, what's that hurt? Thank you for listening to me,
Yeah.
but it's refreshing
Yeah.
to hear more about agriculture in this community and the interest. It's
I think-
tremendous.
And I think also, just in reviewing this very quickly, I think this was geared toward somebody raising bees in a housing development because it speaks about a residential use. And I think it really needs to be modified a little bit to, because you live on your farm, but that's not really a residential use, it's an agriculture. So I think it just needs some tweaking, just in looking at it
No.
briefly.
Yes, and thank you both for coming in.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I think we're set. Anyone else have questions on the uses?
I had a question that was brought up to me by someone connected to Deanna's in Jeff Kenneman.
Mm-hmm.
It was about temporary food uses. So he wanted to, and I told him to just, contact the township, but when I was researching about it, he wants to, continue and even expand the temporary food uses that are out there through most of the evening during the week. So I didn't know like what that fell under, because when I was researching it, the food, like it allowed you to have food outside of a restaurant, but then the restaurant had to be like a specific restaurant. And I don't think that he has a restaurant in that thing. So that was something if you want to.
Yeah, I'd have to defer to the zoning officer really to give like a interpret, but if you could just provide some clarity of that input, that would be helpful. We can workshop that offline. But yeah, I would have to wait on that opinion. So.
Yeah, but that's the sort of thing that like, if we're going to encourage these sort of small scale businesses, that's the sort of thing I think look to be more encouraging of, let people, as long as they have the food safety license and everything.
Agreed.
So what I'm gathering here is terms of like, because there wasn't a much further input, at least on the map changes, explanations aside. And then just in terms of the uses specific, obviously with the bees, what we would do is we would fold that into, once it's been updated with the language changes within the next, because we're able to turn this around pretty quickly because we're only on a small list of things within the next week or so, knowing that the next public meeting is until April 27th. So that's one where if we were to wrap up these changes within the next week, that gets us barely into the month of April. There you have it. It's like 3.5 weeks potentially of just, it's available. You can look at it. It's in the public for review. So with that, the April 27th meeting would be the next review potentially for that final recommendations to the Planning Commission, which then goes to the final for the actual public hearing, which wouldn't be until the summer. If that is amenable to the board.
That's acceptable. When you say planning commission, you mean county?
Chester County Planning Commission, excuse me. Thank you.
Yep,
And that is a 45-day review period.
correct. As well as public comment.
Public comment, and normally, and just the reason why that is, and people ask is why is the MPC really only dictates that you have to have like a meeting before you put it into up for review. So this is one where, because it's such an extensive process, we've had a lot of comments. So just want to make sure that that's out there.
We don't need to take a vote on that, do we?
Not tonight, no.
Yep.
The only thing,
Charlie?
if you wanted to consider, would be holding like a special meeting. That's in the interim, but if there's no rush, no need before the April 27th. So.
Okay. And this is the working draft, not the other.
Correct. And what We leave the other versions up just because we want people to be able to reference what it previously looked like, but you can get to a point where you just have too many versions. If it's amenable to the board, if we have that cleanup, what we would do is essentially just either house it somewhere else, I don't know, but put it in like an archive, but only have one version available. I think that would help clean up some of the confusion.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
That works. Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Good.
Next, we need to consider the nomination of Amanda Mace to the Parks and Rec Board.
Oh, we passed on that.
Yes.
You can come up and ask your question if you want. Can you just state your name and address, please? Thank you.
Hi, Rona Devane on behalf of Estates of Harrogate. I just want to mention something before I start. When you went through the slides and also what was on the website, event venue seems to be missing. Just not listed anywhere, so you want to take a look at that? Yep, seems like it's missing. There were 128 uses. Somehow it's down to 122. I just noticed in my brief scan that event venue is missing. But that's not why I came up here. I just want to mention that to you. I think we have.
I didn't count, so.
Yeah. I'm just bringing it up. I didn't know I was going to jump in when Chris was making the presentation.
In prior versions, there were, I believe, some more fleshed out uses, particularly within agriculture. So there's been some consolidation. I'd have to go back.
This was like event venue for like weddings. That
Yeah,
kind
I'd
of
have to
thing.
look into
Yeah.
that one.
So, first of all, I want to thank the Board of Supervisors, especially the people that have been showing up to these meetings. You know who you are. You've been to every meeting. We've been there too. We've been very engaged for 2 years. In some ways, we don't feel like we were treated very fairly. In other ways, there were some changes made that felt like you were at those meetings and you heard some of it, so that was great. I just want to reiterate some things for those that don't know and also for the whole board. The 2018 comprehensive plan designates Limestone Road area as small-scale mixed use. It is not part of the economic development area 41. It's not part of the planned development district. It is small-scale mixed-use development in Pennsylvania, which was defined actually by our county, referred to projects that combine residential, commercial, and sometimes institutional uses within a single building or small area, often designed to serve local communities. These developments aim to create vibrant neighborhoods by integrating living, working, and recreational spaces in close proximity. Samantha then publicly talked about this and the Limestone Road area to be a transition between the mixed-use corridor and the residential areas to promote light industrial research and development, small scale, which I think most of that you have done. Okay. And then she went on to say smaller scale, not generating a ton of traffic, limited residential, which would be compatible with the nearby residential environment. So this is pretty important, I think, when we get to the couple of problems that I see. And this is governed by, again, the comprehensive plan. Limestone Road also was designated as a major arterial, which prioritizes traffic flow and mobility, which is more critical than development and property access. And that, again, is defined in the comprehensive plan. So I'm just pointing these out so I can get to these things. Any development that requires high volume access would violate that purpose in the comprehensive plan. Additionally, I want to point out, I know you must go through this all the time, Dave. The road is in terrible shape. I've personally, put in the official complaints through the state. It really can't handle more traffic. The plan also, and Chris touched on this a little bit, defines the township as a progressive township serious about the quality of life of the residents. It goes on to state the number one goal is to promote development that enhances the traditional character of New Garden Township and enriches the quality of life of the community. So, a lot of changes have been made. A lot of them are good. There are some real inconsistencies with the comprehensive plan. The most glaring one probably that I think is easy to see is the greater than 3,000 square foot service general. That could be 100,000 square foot. I don't understand, and maybe it was an oversight, why that wasn't designated at least as special exception, same as retail general. So not saying that it can exist, because maybe something 3,000 square foot would fit with that small scale mixed use, but something that was 100,000, 200,000, anything over 3,000 could be anything, would not fit, and it doesn't seem like conditional use is the right thing. So I'm hoping you guys can take a look at that. Another thing that was inconsistent, because you did designate a car wash and a gas station as special exception, special exception, was a drive-through. And again, that is not, it goes against all those things that I mentioned, the prioritizing the flow of traffic. That would be a lot of in and out, right? And also benefiting just that local small scale community. So that's another one that I think needs to be looked at as far as moving from conditional to special exception. So I think you could move those two pretty easily. That would be an easy change. And again, it doesn't mean that they can't have it. It just would be.
Do you understand that the standards are exactly the same?
I do, except one requires the zoning board to hear it, and there is a difference there. They do.
And the other is the Board of Supervisors.
Yes,
The
correct.
standards are, so it's exactly the same thing. So you're saying it should be the zoning hearing board who
Well, I
makes these
feel like in
decisions, not
the past, the zoning hearing board has taken like maybe they have the time, I don't know, taken a deeper dive. Honestly, we did not feel that those uses should be permitted at all. We were asked to make compromises. Even though we were the ones that were really active for 2 years, and then the developers kind of came in last minute after the Planning Commission made their recommendation. So we would really like to see it not permitted at all. Honestly, a car wash, the gas station, greater than 3,000 square feet, it just doesn't, seem to align with the comprehensive plan. We're no way disparaging this board or saying that you won't take a look at it correctly. So Winnie, it's just that in the past, if we look at the history, the zoning board has taken I guess, more critical look. Yeah. And maybe that's something you can do, but in the past, that has not been the case. I'm going to bring up the biggest concern, which I don't really understand, and Chris actually touched on it, saying that residential flex area is designed to have that more dense housing. And when the Planning Commission had made their recommendation, that was it. They had approved. They had all agreed. And then the developers came in you were there, that late hour. Residential was not part of it at all. And now every residential is permitted by right. And there are some serious concerns as far as what does that mean? How dense could that be? What could that be, to our sister neighborhoods in Harrogate, putting in dense townhomes there? What would that mean for the traffic flow, which again needs to be prioritized per the comprehensive plan? Why is all of that permitted by right? And it seems like that should at least have conditional use, if not a special exception, or some not being permitted, because again, the denser housing we're talking about, not single family. We don't have a problem with that. Even the multi-unit that are like Harlow Point, it's not the kind of dense housing that they're talking about, which is going to go up, in 41, those stacked townhomes or an apartment building. Could you imagine an apartment building backing the Harrogate development? That would be not ideal. And again, prioritizing that Limestone Road as a corridor, traffic has to be priorities per the comprehensive plan over development. So with that being permitted by right, I don't know if Winnie wants to speak to it or what, but it seems like that does not seem appropriate, that every kind of housing should be permitted by right in that corridor. It's not, right, makes sense. That's it. Did you have something
Okay.
you wanted to say about that?
No, thanks for your comments. Chris,
Okay.
you'll take them back.
Yeah, in terms of any recommendations for proposals that the board wants to entertain, just please let me know. Of course, everything just goes back into the Michael Baker planning consultant kind of review, and then put back forward.
Comments around traffic, I mean, that's generally covered in traffic studies, right?
So I can comment on at least the nature of when you get a proposed development. And so for everyone's, yes, essentially at the end of the day, generative new trips created by any development, whether low, small scale, or something of a larger planned use development, has to go through a traffic impact study that exists today and moving forward will continue to exist. Recently, as of, I think it was this past summer, it seems like forever ago now, the township's adoption of Act 247, which essentially is a traffic impact fee ordinance, allows us to either A, accrue fees in terms of amount of generative new trips that a development may do, and we take that revenue and we can apply that to improvements within infrastructure, particularly intersections that considered to be under capacitized. We spend that money, it's in a restricted fund, to be able to improve that infrastructure. Or because Pennsylvania and the MPC, you do have some on-site improvements that you have to do in terms of roadway infrastructure, but this would also allow to build out the off-site as well. So it's kind of like a tool in the toolbox that we could have if you ever do have, like we're going to be reviewing with the White Clay development here in the next few months, to holistically build out the infrastructure rather than focus on just kind of the piece that touches the property based off of the impact fee, based off of the impact study.
Okay.
Claire, did you have some additional comments? Can you just state your name and address?
Claire Aiello, 122 Hollow Point Court, Landenberg. Some comments about the multi-use light new zone, formerly known as a couple of different names. Anyway, just going, when we were reviewing each of the uses, we were looking at the 2018 comprehensive plan. I'm not going to repeat what Rona said, obviously, because we've been working together throughout on this. But I did I felt that we need to understand, and maybe you can explain to us, like, some of the decisions and why you made them. So, for example, Rona spoke about the dwelling, et cetera. My question on outdoor sales lot is there a maximum size to that? Because when we reviewed it, the homeowners felt that the designation should be special exception versus permitted. It's a big gap there. So not sure, like, how in reading what the comprehensive plan tells us about the limestone corridor versus what our thought process was versus yours. That's one example. Another is the automobile fueling, and the car wash, which is graded special exception. Of course, we wanted not permitted. Again, kind of like we'd like to understand after these, couple of years of working on the project, like how we could be so apart. The service, general greater than 3,000 square feet. Rona touched on it. Is that one structure? Does anybody know? Because I compare that to large and small warehousing, which you designated as not permitted, and yet, and yet you're stating that the service general greater than 3,000 is permitted. So when I look at that, I'm kind of confused as to, why you would designate one is permitted and two of them is not permitted. I'm very happy about the non-permitted stuff, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to understand exactly what this is, that the designations would be so different. And the other is, that's, I mean, we had still had 10 or 11 differences, but those were the most important ones, at least in my view. The other with the event venue, it was under service uses between entertainment, assembly, and after entertainment assembly, but before firearm establishment, if you want to look at that, just to zero in on that. It was requested by the homeowners and agreed to by the planning commission as special exception. So hopefully when you review that, you'll go along those lines.
I'm looking at the most updated version, and it is special exception in that
Okay,
district.
good. And that's it. So can you shed any light on, I'm sorry, can you shed any light on the service general, why that would be permitted versus special exception or not permitted as compared to warehousing large, warehousing small, which is designated as not permitted? I'm not understanding, is that a different structure? Is that a different something? I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was our understanding and our feeling was that we were listening to you about reducing truck traffic and sort of large vehicles going through there to give you that win while still allowing smaller things to come in and operate.
Which is great. Nobody's saying anything. I'm not saying anything about that. I just want to understand the difference between service general greater than 3,000 feet and a large warehouse or a small warehouse that's not permitted, and yet, which is great, but why would this be permitted? Is it not a similar thing?
No, not to my understanding. I mean, it was a more general, use for businesses because we're trying to attract as many businesses as possible to the township.
And what size, when it says greater than 3,000 square feet, what would be the maximum size?
That's just,
Whatever's commercially viable.
that's just a definition. So it's a definition that says if it's more than 3,000 square feet, it's a service general. If it's less than that, it's a neighborhood. So it's not saying anything over 3,000 is permitted. It depends on lot size and area and bulk requirements and setbacks and a lot of things to control the size. So that's just a definition that pretty much says it's a commercial service as opposed to a neighborhood service.
But then, depending on lot size, et cetera, would it be considered, why would it be permitted and not even conditional or special exception?
Because it's just it's a use that is appropriate for a number of districts that is permitted in. So they shouldn't require the extra step of having to go to a hearing. That's pretty much.
So you're saying I shouldn't worry about it?
I beg your pardon?
You're saying I shouldn't worry about it?
I never say that. I never say that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Last call, anything else? Okay.
My name is Dave Foster. I own Foster's Mowing Shop down Limestone Road. Just a question as far as certain things I was reading there. It was saying like no automotive repair. How would that apply to me? I'm thinking about expanding my services as far as from lawnmowers because that's a dying industry due to electric. I'm thinking about going in to do motorcycle repair, ATV, UTV, automotive. How would that apply to us if we were to go that route?
That's kind of hard to say. You'd actually, the only way to get a determination as to whether what you want to do complies with zoning is to make an application.
Okay.
It's very difficult to just give you an answer off the top for what you want to do. If, just in looking at the map, are you saying that what you have there now is not going to be permitted going forward?
No, what happened there, I'll be permitted, but I'm gonna add to the services.
Well, again, I could not give you, you would have to make an application. It depends on the lot size and a lot of other things.
Okay.
And we have a single use restrictions for a lot, meaning you can do one thing in a lot. So it depends on whether what you want to expand is the same thing.
Okay.
So a lot of considerations, probably not that much impacted by the
So-
ordinance.
So if he's fixing lawnmowers and he wanted to fix motorcycles,
Then
just
that's,
as an example, and I have no idea.
Yeah, that's,
That's kind of what
and
I,
it's a question of whether is mechanical repair all one thing? You know, so it really,
I would think so.
it really would depend. That's why I'm saying, make an application and then the zoning officer makes that call.
okay. The other thing I'd like to say is when you guys are considering these different zone changes, please take into consideration as to what it applies to the people on Limestone Road's property for resale value, stuff like that. Everybody that's on Limestone Road's been there for 40+ years. And it's no disrespect to Herringate, but they've not been here nowhere close to we've been there. So we need to consider us and what's happening with our property as far as resale value, that kind of stuff, and what can go in there. I just ask you to take that into consideration.
Yeah, I think we have talked.
Yeah. I've been here long enough to remember when they were a cornfield, so.
Mhm. Yep.
And there are people who remember where I live was a cornfield.
Yep.
Steve used to ride dirt bikes where,
Oh, yeah, I used to
where I
ride up
live.
Worth or Harrogate. But that's basically all I have to say. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
anyone, last call. Yep.
Great. So Chris, we'll proceed with what you said earlier about advertising the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, once we get all of the inputs from the board based off of the discussion dialogue tonight, we'll have that just quickly round robin, assess for feedback, and then update the ordinance, and then put it out for public review, communicate, and then just at the April 27th meeting, similar to tonight, have another kind of just a public discussion about any proposed changes, and then where you're at that point in time. Like I said, this is very flexible, the way that we're having going forward, iteration.
And given the comments this evening that we're hearing from the public, if we get them, if we have any ideas, get back to you within the next couple of days so that you can forward it on, correct?
Anything earlier is better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Super. Next, the board needs to consider the appointment of Amanda Mace to the Parks and Rec Board. Is there a motion to approve Amanda?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Amanda Mace to the Park and Recs Board, effective immediately for a 3-year term, which will expire January 1st of 2029.
I'll second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Great. And next, we've got the Delaware Soccer Club Facility Use Agreement of New Garden Park.
So Mike is not here tonight, but this is a continuation of our relationship with Delaware FC. We had a joint partnership that ended up now just being Delaware FC. I believe it was White Clay Soccer was the kind of partner in this. And that was up to last year for use of the fields. So they're moving forward, and Delaware FC is a pretty prominent organization, and they're just at a space premium. So this continues to use the soccer fields for rental of our site here.
Mhm.
If you have any questions.
Now, you've reviewed it, Winnie, as
Yeah.
well as Chris.
When
Same thing.
he wrote it.
Some-
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's essentially the same agreement that has been in place, with the exception that this one is just limited to 1 year. The older agreement had some automatic renewal terms, but we don't. And this is a different club, so you had an original agreement a number of years ago, and they kept amending it. This is a different club, so it's a new agreement, but the terms are the same except for the renewal.
My favorite part is it says it's understood by both the township and soccer club that sole and exclusive use of the fields is not provided to the soccer club. At one point in time, we did have like an exclusivity clause or something, which really.
That locked every other
If
kind
you
of
want-
partnerships out.
And I needed.
That was a
Like one-
staff input to see if they would be amenable to making sure that they could have shared use of the field.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that that's.
And there's also, because we're now carry in, carry out,
Yep.
there's also, before there was a dumpster charge, but we don't have dumpsters anymore. So now the lease provides that they have to carry their trash out with them.
Okay.
So that's new because we weren't carry in, carry out when the initial lease was started.
Okay.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the facility use agreement?
The motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Next, we've got the 2026 fiscal year fuel contract.
I'm going to yield to Kenny to come up and talk about the FY26 purchase agreement.
Thank you, Kenny.
Good evening, everyone. This is pretty much a year-over-year thing that we do with the co-op. It gets sent out to bid in the local paper, and then contractors can put in on it. Since there's a fluctuation in fuel cost every minute, it seems like, they base it on the differential price over the daily rack price. So we send it out to bid whatever day it's first advertised is what they put in the contract. As far as what it's going to cost, but that price changes for what it is each day. But what does not change is the delivery cost, and that's what we actually award the contract on. So the lowest delivery cost was 32 cents a gallon to Dixieland, who has been delivering it for the last few years. And that's actually down from 36 cents a gallon last year.
Sounds good to me. Is there a,
Motion to approve.
yeah, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Kenny. And next, we've got spring cleanup.
Yeah, this one's pretty short and sweet. Our spring cleanup is going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, April 16th through the 19th. Thursday we'll do 7 to 3. Friday is going to be 7 to 7. Saturday 7 to 5, and Sunday is going to be 7 to 3 again. Just like normal, we'll do. It's open to all township residents. It is a free disposal for yard waste, non-hazardous materials, appliances. Tires and Freon does have a fee associated with it because we have to pay to get rid of that. And then we'll also accept scrap metal like bikes, patio furniture, grills, stuff like that. Some of the items we can't take are electronics, ammunition or explosive, propane tanks, gas, oil, diesel fuel, and then any kind of hazardous material like oil-based paint, pool chemicals, and stuff like that. There's a separate household waste cleanup that the county puts on a couple times a year throughout the county that residents can participate in and take that kind of stuff too.
Thank you, Kenny.
You're very welcome.
Can I just piggyback on that real quick? Just remind everyone that Brian Sachs, who's a supervisor over in London Britton Township, actually hosts a cleanup every year. It'll be April 4th from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. along Newark Road, which is actually in our township. So he cleans from Buttonwood or Broad Run to the Delaware border. So makes it look nice for probably 2 or 3 months until everyone decides to litter again. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's people from Delaware because all the trash is thrown from like the cars as they're like going to Delaware. So gonna blame them.
Great. Next, we've got the airport land development zone designation. Is John covering that?
It's going to be kind of a joint effort here for myself and John.
John, you want to come up?
I just kept everything screen sharing here.
Members of the board and the community. On a side note, I just want to say that we have some of the best local honey in Tough Kettaman, and we really should make custom hand-blown glass airplane bottles and put some honey in and sell it at the airport. We recently were approached by an opportunity with the Pennsylvania Community and Economic Development to classify certain areas at the airport as ALDZ, Airport Land Development Zone. And it's really a marketing tool for us to really go out and let organizations and companies know that if they come out to the airport as a economic driver on vacant land or in vacant buildings, which we don't have, but certainly land we do, they will receive a tax credit of $2,100 per job. So great opportunity for organizations to base themselves at an airport. Obviously, that would have the right type of use at the airport, but we would have to apply to have land issued within the ALDZ.
So just to kind of fold this into the larger picture, and what we're talking about here specifically is kind of where eligibility is and kind of where eligibility is adjacent to in terms of just the larger area in the zoning district. This is kind of now all established as what we talked about tonight, Innovation District, but that is currently all business park today. So the township's plan has always been to try to seek any opportunities about establishing more job creators in this area, particularly because it's up around the Route 1 interchange down onto Newark Road, and also was a significant part of why the township proceeded to purchase the airport with associated grant funding to get this kind of economic area established in the township. So John hit the nail on the head. This is one where, you know, this is a tool in the toolbox, if you will, because it's an application post kind of commitment to an area that if you're going to bring jobs through the state, this isn't a township TIF, this is a state TIF on a 10-year ramp-up agreement to have a tax subsidy for every job created. And that's one where you also have the ability to get other associated funding, maybe like a PA sites type program. So there's a lot of programs you can go through. This is just, but that's available today. But ALDZ program is only when you are a status as an ALDZ. And so you also have to look at the vacancies for not within 5 years or outside of 5 years, as well as establishing kind of all the meets and bounds to select we'll call it like a eligibility area. So if you build your building right here, and that's just to say you didn't go into too far down the rabbit hole, but essentially it's just another flexibility for somebody who's looking to create a new site next to an airport, maybe through use through the airport or just being adjacent to. If you've seen a lot of light industrial parks, for the most part, common places are around airports just because of that clustering effect, impact, as well as kind of coupling with a logistics hub as well. And so there's gonna, you know, this kind of marketing tool turns into a leads generation, turns into an active, I'll call it a commitment. This is a public process, so everything done at the airport has to come through the Board of Supervisors to approve ultimately, because it's township-owned property. So there'll be a lot of talk in the future, if this is successful, about the kind of restricted, non-restricted kind of acreages that were either deeded outside of the airport kind of master plan proper or within it, and then what we can do to kind of make sure that you know, the airport wins and the township wins as well in terms of just what's being brought to it. So needless to say, this isn't like anything can just pop up overnight. It's going to be a very meticulous public process to do so. But we'll also understand that anybody coming to the airport can add in potential for additive capital facility improvements at the airport to make it stronger as well. So think of it like based off of how successful you are, you can meet other obligations to increase the status of the airport, because the goal is to make sure that we are a constant, you know, just a growing potential commercial hub, as well as making sure that we're better servicing all of our GA people who house themselves at the airport as well. So John could probably go more so into terms of like what kind of layout plans can kind of look like. And this is kind of obviously putting the ball kind of cart way in front of the horse, but you might have questions on it tonight. But just in terms of like immediate impact of what this might look like for kind of building out in certain areas. If it's an additive facility to group with the airport function, and you're building hangars that have lease rates, of course, that revenue would be established to go to support the airfield. And then the jobs of the workers going in terms of earned income tax going to the township. So everybody can get an additive piece from this. It's not just one or the other, if that makes sense. Go from there.
Yeah, as far as any additive to that, I mean, Chris, you're pretty thorough, but there's a photo of our airport layout plan. Any projects that we do at the airport need to be listed on our airport layout plan with the state. And really the driver for the ALDZ is the property associated with the airport. And that's the way that it is spelled out. So the way this process works, that we would apply for different parcels at the airport is considered vacant land, and they would be approved on a state level, and opportunities for organizations, companies, and of course with a compatible land use to be located within those areas. Again, it's a marketing tool to be able to attract them, to create a driver economically for the airport.
Thanks, John. So you want us to approve the application for the ALDZ designation?
Approve us to move forward through the process to designate the available land at the airport ALDZ.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Yeah.
It was supported through
No, I have
with the Chester
refusal.
County Economic Development Council, so we have had at least some of them, they all support this as well.
I think it's mine.
Correct.
I just want to say, before we vote, I'm going to recuse myself because this involves my employer, DCED, and tax money, and probably not a great thing to vote on.
Okay. I'll make the motion to include the 3 parcels that the township owns. 60-125, 60-125.5, and 60-1256. That would cover the parcels that the airport owns. That's my motion.
Sounds good.
I'll second the motion.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. Chris, next we got the Mason-Dixon Arc Corner hip changes.
So this one's fairly cut and dry. If you remember, it was, I believe back in November, Brandywine Conservancy came in and briefed the Maryland Arc Historic Interpretation Plan. That was a grouping of 4 localities here, kind of combining to create kind of a natural corridor, if you will, to kind of connect all these points of interest, celebrating the historical heritage of the area. So with that, there was a sizable process that went through to get that document put together, and we approved it. And then townships after us approved it and made changes. So per the definition of the grant agreement obligations, we all have to approve the same thing. So there was a small errata sheet. So this is more of like a bureaucratic kind of take here, if you will. But you'll see there in the list of changes, very minor in scope, from Franklin Township. We just have to agree to those and accept the updated, quote unquote, interpretation plan with errata from Franklin Township. Those changes in that list will be the amendments that will be folded into it, and then we'll get a nice clean version. But this is also to make sure that I believe it's London Britton Township's kind of shouldering the VPP grant from Chester County with this. So they won't be able to be made whole until they close out of, and that is contingent upon all 4 participating municipalities to accept the same plan.
Yeah, I think the changes look fine to me.
Yeah, I think they were spawned from concerns about the Big Elk.
Zero impact to New Garden Township
Right.
is the takeaway from it.
Local sort of issue.
Okay.
Why they're deleting all the references to a park. So they're making it very clear they only want interpretive areas.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the new plan?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And then last, we've got the Smedley Preserve topographic survey.
So yes, this was kind of a later addition in between the canceled meeting and this one. So as you know, with the Smedley Preserve adopted master plan, there is a need to create public access to the site because right now the only access is off of McHugh Road to a small kind of unnamed culvert kind of area that you have to park along the side of the road. So it's a very clunky transition into the park. However, the township's first round of grant applications came up short of what we intended to get. It was very competitive this last cycle for parks-related grant improvement projects. Everyone's kind of doing the same thing at the same time, so they tend to kind of speckle out a funding area rather than giving out the full amounts. So with that, there was an identified pathway that we could do to establish like an interim parking space through a process where we would have to get the paving completed using, I believe it's through our Public Works Department, spent millings from potentially the Hillendale Road paving project this upcoming summer, as well as some minor grading, as well as the need to get PennDOT's driveway permit for the site. And all that's to say you need to do a topographic survey for the parking lot, which would have been part of the engineering and design of it in the first place. to make sure that PennDOT will give you the blessing to open a driveway there. So think of it like a kind of a linear process. If we do this, it's deeded to be, or assessed to be okay from a topography standpoint, then we would try to seek the window for the PennDOT driveway permit. And then from there, all in time for the summer paving program with some ability to do some site work there as well. So we can finally get a public access right off of Church Road and more spots too, so people could get right into the preserve. And that would be at a significantly lesser cost because you're using spent millings instead of a full kind of conditioned parking lot. So who knows, it might look more like a preserve if that's the case, but.
Bowman survey.
And that's from the open space fund, excuse me.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's it. Chris, did you have anything for a manager's report?
I did. I did that in the beginning of the meeting for the air quality monitor.
Okay.
update.
Any comments from the board? before
I
we
do.
Adjourn?
Yes.
David?
So apparently I should preface this by saying this is outside of our jurisdiction and above our pay grade, but apparently this last Saturday along Hepburn Road where the Lowe's is over in Avondale, which is London Grove Township, the state police were conducting a search of every car. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. They were, from what I understand, asking for licenses, registration, vehicle sort of information. I know our police are coming next month to give their report, so if we could put it on the docket to ask them. And I know it was the state police conducting it, but I would like to know why the state police was doing that, given the the temperature in the country, and specifically why they were doing it right in front of the Lowe's, which again kind of speaks to the sort of ICE immigration concerns that we've had. So if that's something we could look at, just irregardless of the Lowe's, I don't really think that's the appropriate thing to be doing.
Yeah,
At
there
any
was
point in this within the continental United States of America.
There was and this is for Chief Greenwald. I'll reach out to him in advance of the meeting to make sure he has all of the information ready to be able to discuss publicly and ask questions on that one. So,
thank you.
Any other comments? Nope. Great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Is there a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah. I could go eat dinner now, David.